The Pittsburgh Pirates showed some fight against the Los Angeles Dodgers, and it led to a series win, and they'll welcome the Minnesota Twins this weekend.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Locked On Podcast Network here, or Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every single day. Kind of messed my intro up a little bit there, but folks, welcome back to your daily dose of the Pittsburgh Pirates here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every single day. It's Friday, June 7th. And, the year just keeps on moving by quickly and quickly and quickly and more quickly and more quickly. And another thing that can move quickly is the money in your PrizePicks account. If you go to PrizePicks right now and download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for your first deposit match up to $100, you can make a ton of money on PrizePicks this baseball season. And if you would have bet on O'Neal Cruz to be over half a home run last night, you would have hit that on PrizePicks. You would have hit a lot of things in terms of offensive output on PrizePicks last night. If you watch that game between the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Los Angeles Dodgers, a Dodgers victory, mind you, for the LA Dodgers, thanks to a fifth inning barrage offensively from this Dodgers team. A fifth inning that just did not go all that well. Bailey Falter did also not have that great of an outing yesterday as well. I feel like it's almost an expectation that we expect Bailey Falter to kind of have these starts every once in a while. And he had not his greatest start yesterday. Just a very weird start to the game overall, though. He obviously gives up the leadoff single to Mookie Betts, and then Shohei Ohtani hits one to right field. Olivares clearly didn't catch the ball. Let's just go ahead and get that out of the way now. Olivares clearly did not catch the baseball. But Shohei's called out anyway. And they go to review and figure out, okay, he didn't catch the ball. Great. That is the correct call. But then they go and give Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts first and second base, which then leads to a Freddie Freeman home run. Things get spiraled out of control a little bit. It becomes 4-0 in the first inning. Pirates answered right back, though, in this game. I mean, the second inning and the third inning, they put up 4 runs of their own, answer right back. But where everything went wrong, the fifth inning of this ball game, that's what took them out of this game. And it was Ben Heller who was making his Pirates debut for the Pittsburgh Pirates in this one in the fifth inning. Falter, of course, finishing his day with 4 innings pitched and 5 earned with 6 strikeouts. So a kind of higher strikeout total than we're used to seeing with Bailey Falter. I talked about it on yesterday's show as well, too, about the LA Dodgers being one of, if not the best teams in the National League as far as hitting left-handed pitching is concerned. They proved that yesterday with 8 hits off of Bailey Falter. And smartly, the Pirates did not throw another lefty on the evening, or they did throw a lefty, and Justin Brule, who also made his Pirates debut, looked pretty good in his 2 outs that he had to record. But they threw Ben Heller, Kyle Nicholas, and Carmen Mlodzinski, and things really spiraled, folks, when Ben Heller entered the game in his Pirates debut. At one point, Ben Heller had a 135.00 ERA. Yeah, it was not good. It pretty much took the Pirates out of the game. He had 1 inning of work, 4 hits, 5 earned runs, and a strikeout to boot. But that took the Pirates out of the game for the most part. I mean, at that point, it's 10-4. Game's pretty much over. But one thing that I liked that I saw from this Pirates team, despite being in that hole, I mean, you could easily just sit there, go up to the plate, and give up down 6 runs, especially to a team like the LA Dodgers. But they managed 3 runs in the 8th inning, and they at least made the Dodgers work a little bit. I think that was the biggest thing that I saw from this game yesterday, especially when you already had the series secured. You already secured a series victory. And you had every reason to just lay down in that game. And you come back and you at least only lose by 4. Now, I know it's still a loss. It doesn't matter how many runs you lose by, but you eliminate that blow up by Ben Heller, and those 3 runs, oh my, that game is a lot closer. And the Pirates might even find a way to win. Nevertheless, they still lose. Now, they did beat the Dodgers in this series, a team that in recent history they've played very well against. And it would have been nice to get a sweep. I spoke about that on the show yesterday because this team desperately needs a 3 to 4 to 5 game winning streak, and they just can't string it together. But now when you go to this weekend against the Minnesota Twins, which we'll get to in a little bit, you'd love a 4-2 week. That would do numbers for this team, especially going into a big series against the St. Louis Cardinals next week. But one of the best things I think that we saw on the game yesterday, obviously, Oneil Cruz, by the way, awesome what he did with his cleats last night, wearing the Pirates cleats and the Dodgers cleats. Of course, the Dodgers did sign Oneil Cruz as a teenager, so he pretty much got his introduction to professional baseball from the Los Angeles Dodgers. Of course, he never played a Major League Baseball game with the LA Dodgers as part of the Tony Watson trade, but very nice gesture by him to wear both of those cleats, obviously honoring the team he plays for now and the team that gave him his first shot. And speaking of shots, my God, I don't know how many of you were still watching it, but I was watching it in the 8th inning when they were down 11-4. And Oneil Cruz is up to bat with Andrew McCutchen and Brian Reynolds. And folks, when I tell you, he just absolutely destroyed a baseball. I mean, destroyed it. Put it in the Allegheny River in the air. It did not hop into the Allegheny River. He hit that ball 462 feet with 117 mile per hour exit velocity. He absolutely destroyed that baseball. And it's ironic because I've been talking about why the Pirates desperately need Oneil Cruz and Jack Suwinski to offer some power from the left-hand side of the plate. They need left-handed power so badly on this team. They have it right-handed. You have the likes of Olivares. You have Connor Joe, Nick Gonzalez, who leads all the National League in RBI since being called up on May 10th. Even Key Brian Hayes every once in a while. You have that. And we know that power is not exactly the element that gets this team going. But if you have the opportunity to have left-handed power on your lineup, which you do, Oneil Cruz and Jack Suwinski, you need those guys to start tapping into it a little bit, especially against right-handed pitching. Because if you struggle against right-handed pitching, you're not going to be that great of a baseball team because you're going to see a ton more righties and you're going to see lefties. Oneil Cruz, I think that might be a good stepping stone for him as far as things are concerned. And again, I saw a lot of funny takes this morning before I started the show where, yes, the Pirates, if you look at the standings right now, which we'll have a big standings conversation about the NL wildcard later on this show, they're in last place in the NL Central. Yep, they're in last place. If they were in the NL East, they would be in third place. If they were in the NL West, they would be in second or third place, depending on how the winning percentages would work. And if I look at it, they would be in fourth, actually. The NL Central, as I tried to tell a lot of people when the season began, is going to be a bloodbath division. The Brewers have an outright lead on it right now and probably could have a stranglehold on that division all the way through. But you have teams like the Cubs who have some star power. The Pirates have seen that. You have teams in the Cincinnati Reds who, albeit, have struggled a lot. Injuries haven't helped that whatsoever. And you have the Cardinals who were playing above their heads for the last week and a half, starting to come back down to earth again. And the Pirates haven't even seen Cincinnati and St. Louis. And to even butt this, the Pirates could beat St. Louis next week in the series and jump from last to second place. If your takeaway from the Pirates beating the LA Dodgers, one of baseball's best teams and franchises in a series, 2 out of 3 games, is that the Pirates are in last place in the NL Central, then come on. Really? That's what we're worried about when they're 4 games under 500 and they're 7 games out of the divisional race? And that could change literally over the weekend to where they could be in second place depending on how things play out. I don't like that. Now, 2 things can be true when we're talking about that. 1, they beat the Dodgers and they've been playing much better baseball lately. And 2, it's okay to be frustrated with this team being in last place and being 4 games under 500, especially when they're in the top 3 in baseball and blown leads this year. It's okay to be frustrated about those things. Both of those things can be true. But your takeaway being that they're in last place after beating the team with the second best record in the National League 2 out of 3 games is that they're in last place. I don't know about that one too much. That's just me. I don't agree with that one too much. And one thing, again, that I think you learned from this series against the Dodgers, Tuesday, no offense whatsoever, really, on either side. 9 combined hits on the day, but you had one swing that changed it, and that was Jack Sawinski's home run. And you won that game. You got a scoreless outing from that trio of bullpen arms that you wanted to get from in Holderman, Chapman, and Bednar. The following day, it's the same team. You went 10-6. A lot more offense in this one. 20 combined hits. You put up a 7 spot in the second inning. And the Dodgers clawed back into that game. Tried to. I mean, at one point, it was 8-5. It was a very close. It was getting close. Pirates shut the door. And then, as I already mentioned yesterday, you had every reason to give up on that game when you were down 10-4. They at least made it respectable. This team has fight. You can give them that. And they're going to fight all the time against anybody in this league. They can play with anyone. Let's keep in mind, folks, that this year alone, the Pirates have won a series against the Baltimore Orioles, won a series against the Atlanta Braves, won a series against the LA Dodgers, and split a series on the road against the Philadelphia Phillies. This team, record-wise, is not where you'd want it to be, but eventually, and it has the feeling of this, eventually that win streak is going to come. Eventually, the record is going to start looking like you have 2 of the best young pitchers in baseball on your roster and a potential all-star in Mitch Keller in the pitching staff. It's going to eventually get to that point. And that'll be helped if they could find a way to win the series against the Minnesota Twins, who are an interesting team because when you look at them record-wise, not too far away from the Pirates at 33-29. But is that record inflated a little bit? And what can we expect from the Minnesota Twins this weekend? We'll discuss in a minute. Folks, today's episode is brought to you by Policygenius. Get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance and head to policygenius.com because a lot of life is unpredictable. We know that. Things can happen to family members, to friends, to anybody that is important to you in your life, including yourself. But a good life insurance plan gives your family a financial safety net to protect against some of the unknowns. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage, $292 per year. You might spend that at the grocery store. And you could spend that now to give your family peace of mind. And some options are 100% online and lets you avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policygenius helps you easily compare your options from America's top insurers in just a few clicks. Their award-winning agents can even walk you through the process step by step. Policygenius has no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance, and they have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. So get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance with Policygenius, and head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com. Go and get peace of mind today. And welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every single day. Make sure you also check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, talking about the Boston Celtics taking the game 1 against the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA Finals. The Stanley Cup Finals between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers kicks off tomorrow. So Locked On Sports Today has all of your news from the local host of Locked On every single day and 24/7. Can't get wrong with that. Now, the Pirates are playing the Minnesota Twins this weekend, their second AL Central opponent on the season, if my mind serves me right, seeing as they've played 4 games against the Detroit Tigers this far. And yes, they have not played another AL Central opponent outside of that. Speaking of, the AL Central, folks, is an interesting, very interesting division. Because remember when we were coming into this year and saying the NL Central and the AL Central were probably the 2 worst divisions in baseball? Well, every team except the Chicago White Sox in the AL Central is 500 or better. And the Minnesota Twins are 33-29 and 7.5 back of the first place Cleveland Guardians. Meanwhile, in the AL West, which I think is fun, every team except the Mariners is below 500. And then, of course, every team in the NL Central is kind of bunched together. So this is going to be a fun series, I think. It has the potential to be a very fun series between these two teams. Now, if you're looking at what kind of players you're going to see from the Minnesota Twins in this series, 2 of the guys that you're kind of worried about as far as the Twins are concerned, in Pablo Lopez and Chris Paddock, just pitched in their series against the New York Yankees. Lopez going yesterday. They lost 8-5 to the Yankees yesterday. So you avoid that. And they lost that series, I believe, to the New York Yankees as well. So not exactly the greatest start to anything for the Minnesota Twins, who have lost their last 3 games. They lost them all to the Yankees. And you have to look at this weekend and say the Pirates have the pitching advantage, I would think. Joe Ryan has had a pretty decent year, 4-4, 3.38 ERA. Mitch Keller will be going tonight for everybody as well. It's on Apple TV Plus, yip-de-doo. But Mitch Keller will be going tonight as well. 3.42 ERA. We've seen Mitch have an amazing May. He looked absolutely phenomenal in the month of May. Is playing like the all-star that we all saw last season finally. And then on Sunday, you have Bailey Ober, 4.94 ERA against Jared Jones, who had as good of a bounce-back start as he could have after that bad outing in Detroit against the LA Dodgers, shutting out the LA Dodgers over the course of 6 innings. You might have noticed that I skipped over Saturday. It'll be Simon Woods Richardson, or Simeon Woods Richardson, I think is how you pronounce his name, against to be determined, because we did find out that Quinn Priester will be on the 15-day IL, retroactive to sometime last week. So to be determined for the Pirates tomorrow at PNC Park. I will be there, by the way. So if you want to come say hi, just look for the guy with the mustache that's not on the field, because we have a couple. Now, it's interesting because a lot of people were throwing around names about who would come up, like Domingo Germán could potentially come up. I don't think he's ready just yet. Even Derek Shelton has said he still has a ways to go. Braxton Ashcraft was another name that came up, but he just had a career high in strikeouts last night, so he will not be able to pitch in 2 days. And there's other options too, but I would assume that it will be somebody from AAA, and you'll probably bring up somebody on the taxi squad. Now, we've already seen Josh Fleming, I believe, earlier this season, kind of be in that opener's role and be in that bullpen game opening role. And I think that's what the Pirates are going to have to do here. Martin Perez, still on the IL. Marco Gonzalez, we don't even know if he's going to pitch again for this team this year. So it's interesting to see what the Pirates do in the Saturday matchup. Wood Richardson, by the way, a 3.05 ERA. So this is still a Twins team that can pitch. But with Keller and Jones pitching 2 out of these 3 games, I think you have to feel confident about how the Pirates enter this as far as pitching is concerned. Now, you obviously have a lineup in the Minnesota Twins that is a relatively good one. You have the likes of Carlos Correa. You have the likes of, Byron Buxton and Alex Kirilloff, who is, of course, a Pittsburgh kid. And Willie Castro is another guy that they have, but their offense has struggled this year. Castro leads the team in batting average at .254. Ryan Jeffers, who's had quite the season, has 12 homers and 36 RBIs as a catcher. But when you look overall at this team, folks, I mean, you have some guys here that are hitting the ball well, like obviously Carlos Santana will have his comeback to Pittsburgh. Jose Miranda, Max Kepler, Trevor Larnach. They have guys that are there, but you have guys that are struggling too. I mean, the OPSs are up there, but, Kepler's batting .261, but he's only played in 43 games. It's going to be interesting how this series really turns out, because you have the Pirates coming in, beating the Dodgers 2 out of 3. You have the Twins being swept by the New York Yankees. And Minnesota, I think the biggest thing that you're going to have to watch in this series, especially for the Pirates pitching, is the fact that Minnesota is 9th in the league in homers. These are all my notes about the Twins today. And they average about a homer per game. So you're going to have to watch that. And you're going to want the Pirates to limit the home run ball against a team that can definitely do it. And over the last 10, even, I mean, the Twins are batting .216 and have been outscored by 9 runs with a 4.92 ERA. So we'll see what this series provides. I mean, I feel like it's a very evenly matched series. I think you could say that about a lot of the series that the Pirates have been in as of late, because these teams are about identical in records. They're 4 games apart, and that's the difference right now for the Pirates of being over 500 or under 500. And that's how crazy baseball is. And I also think that's a good segue into talking about the insane NL wildcard picture. Because, folks, I heard all about that last place stuff, but we're going to take a look at how the NL wildcard looks right now and why I think it's going to continue to be absolutely nuts. Today's episode of Locked On Pirates is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100, because, folks, PrizePicks is absolutely awesome. You have to go check it out if you can, because with PrizePicks, you can turn $10 into $1,000. Sorry, I got excited because you can win $1,000 from just putting 10 in a single game. Watching your favorite sports this summer, you can make a PrizePicks lineup with some Pirates players in it in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stat projections, and you're locked in. And folks, we all love promotions. We all love being given free stuff pretty much. And PrizePicks does that because they got you covered every week. From lowering select player stat projections on Tuesdays, which increases your chance of getting a win, to getting your free entries back if you have a losing lineup on Friday. And there's always action on PrizePicks, and this is the perfect time to try out something new as basketball and hockey are winding down. Make sure to try baseball and esports this month, because for every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your lineup doesn't win, you'll get your entry fee back. So choose from Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more. And, you know, if you think Shohei Ohtani can have more than 0.5 home runs, or Ke'Bryan Hayes can have more than 1.5 total bases, you can bet on that at PrizePicks. So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. And pick more, pick less. It's that easy with PrizePicks. And welcome back to the third and final segment of today's episode of Locked On Pirates here on the Locked On Pirate Podcast Network. Why am I messing that up today? Guess I'm so amped to get to PNC Park tomorrow. But thank you guys for tuning in, as you always do. Another full week in the books after this show is done today. We'll obviously be coming back on Monday to talk about this Twin Series and some other things. But before I depart with you today, I've heard a lot, again, about the Pirates being in last place. I've heard a lot about, you know, this team could be in a much better spot. And yes, they could. You could go back and look at a multitude of games that they should have won. And guess what? Every team in Major League Baseball can do that. You look at the wild card, and it makes me feel very interesting. Because I also hear people say, well, the Pirates need to make a move right now. They need to go get a first baseman. They need to go get an outfielder, and they need to do it now. Well, it's kind of hard to do that when realistically, there's about 5 teams in Major League Baseball that are out of it. If that, maybe 4. Because Colorado and Miami are done. Neither of those teams is going to compete this year. The A's, the Angels, the White Sox. The White Sox aren't competing. The Angels or the A's could go on a little win streak and throw themselves into that. But you go to the NL wild card for a minute. And the Chicago Cubs. Yes, the 31-32 Chicago Cubs are currently the second wild card team in the National League. The Atlanta Braves are the first wild card team and likely will be for the remainder of the year. Keep in mind what I just said. The Chicago Cubs, who are a game under 500, are the second wild card team. Meanwhile, the San Diego Padres, who are 32-34, are the last wild card team. So you're probably wondering, okay, why aren't the Pirates up there? Well, they've had their moments where they've blown games or blown leads. They've had their losing streaks. They've had their strings of just bad luck. They've had their strings of bad offense. The bullpen has been off and on, very much so in the last month. The Arizona Diamondbacks at 30-33, along with the Cincinnati Reds and the San Francisco Giants, all at 30-33, 3 games under 500, are a half game out of the wild card. The St. Louis Cardinals, who the Pirates will play next week, are 29-32. They are also a half game out of the final wild card spot. The Pittsburgh Pirates at 29-33, folks, are a singular game out of the wild card. Tonight, if the San Diego Padres lost and the Pittsburgh Pirates won, and let's say Cincinnati and San Francisco lose, or Cincinnati and St. Louis lose, which let me make sure they're not playing each other before I make this point. They are not. But the Cubs are playing the Reds. Let's say the Reds lose to the Cubs this evening, and Arizona or San Francisco or St. Louis loses, and the Pirates win, and San Diego loses. Then the Pittsburgh Pirates are in play for the final wildcard spot. Even the 27-35 New York Mets, who are an absolute mess, are 3 games out of the wild card. The Washington Nationals, who many people consider a rebuilding team, are 27-35 and 3 games out of the wild card. This entire race is nuts. And if you're a team, excuse me, that is not named the Philadelphia Phillies, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Atlanta Braves, or the Milwaukee Brewers, if the Brewers continue to do what they're doing, you are likely involved in this crazy wild card race. Now, I know it's the beginning of June. This stuff can change and likely will. But what I don't think will change is the fact that the Pirates are going to be involved in this race probably all the way up until September, as with many other teams, which makes trading a little bit more difficult. And it's going to make the trade deadline very interesting. But that's also where you go back to the Pirates and say, Jared Jones, Mitch Keller, and Paul Skeens. If you can manage to win 2 out of 3 of those more often than not when those guys pitch, you're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. They are a team that can be competitive this year with their pitching staff. And of all the teams that I named in that group of Chicago, San Diego, Arizona, Cincinnati, San Francisco, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, and even the Mets, Pirates probably have the best starting rotation of any of those teams, maybe outside of Arizona, who has Gallen, Rodriguez, and Montgomery, even though Erod is injured right now, and Brandon Pfaadt. Outside of that, I mean, San Diego has Dylan Cease and Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove. But the Pirates easily have a pitching advantage over most of those teams. And if the offense, and I've said this before too, can just be average, then you're going to see the Pirates slowly and surely climb up that board, and a win against the Minnesota Twins, a series win against the Minnesota Twins, would go a very long way in doing that. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in through another week of the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. My name is Ethan Smith. You can follow this show on Twitter at Locked On Pirates. Follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan. Find the show on YouTube, Spotify, Odyssey, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. If you're coming to PNC Park, leave it in the comments and I'll get to it and hopefully meet some of you tomorrow again. But until then, see you on the flip side.